I've got 10 custom dual class cards made by you guys, the Regis Kilbin community, including some really, really cool fun designs, some legendaries, some dual class pairings that aren't in the game right now. So let's jump into it. Starting off here with mcgriver, a 4-mana 2/2 for rogue and mage from Faroon. And the battle cry reads, add a banana, a coin, a spare part, and a toxin to your hand. So we basically have here a handful of the different token style packages we've seen in Hearthstone in the past, particularly spare parts from all the GVG stuff. We've got toxins from Zeril. Bananas show up in a few different spots. And of course, we all know and love the coin. And it's playing on MacGyver, if you don't know, famous TV character who could take a bunch of random stuff, put it together, and turn it into some miraculous life-saving, invention out of nowhere. MacGyver is doing the same thing, which is very fitting for the gnome-style character, and it's really perfect for both of these classes that are able to use spells, like all 4 of these are, in really effective ways. Mage, of course, fueling things like Mana Cyclone. Rogue, on the other hand, all these cheap spells in hand can be great for buffing their Edwins or activating combos, so on, so forth. So this card just pulls together perfect fantasy and storytelling references, which World of Warcraft and Hearthstone are both very well known for. Fits their classes really well. Now, I will admit, this card's pretty good, I think, just because it's doing so much and it's so much fuel. So there might be some balance concerns. As you know, I tend to favor design and flavor over balance. If you think this one's too OP, please feel free to share those thoughts in the comments. I think they're probably quite reasonable, but nonetheless, everything else about this card just knocks it out of the park. It feels so good, and I'd love to see something like this in Hearthstone. So next up here, let's take a look at Bookmaster Bei Chow from Sumufu Boy. This is a 4-mana 3/6 dual class for mage and priest. Now, that's not a combination that's in Hearthstone right now, but it is a pretty sweet fit for this card as it fuses the 2 targeted hero power classes together. And it reads, when you target a minion with your hero power, you silence it. So pretty nifty upside there. They could be used, of course, against your opponent's stuff. Mage could silence the second half of a Kartut defender, ping off that 1 health, and also deny them the 3 points of heal. Boom. Cool effect for Bookmaster Bei Chow. Priest, on the other hand, could use this on their own minions pretty effectively. We've seen Silence Priest toyed around with as a pseudo-successful archetype in the past, and Bei Chow could help support that. Also just a great stat line for Priest here with the high base health that would fit into that follow-up with Inner Fires and so on and so forth. And of course, from a flavor standpoint, this is absolutely perfect. From an art, she's silencing Whispering, much like Dalaran Librarian in the past, but amped up to a legendary level. And it's perfect for Scholomance too, because it's all about books and libraries. So this card looks like it could have actually been in the game. Now, from a balance standpoint, I do think this card's actually kind of weak. If you consider it in combination with like Spellbreaker of old, right, which is just a nice targeted silence, you're kind of having to pay the penalty of your hero power on top of it for additional mana. And sure, you're getting some stats along the way, and you're getting the possible perpetuity of this card existing for multiple turns, which is upside, but it's a pretty high tempo penalty upside. So I could almost move this card around to a lower mana cost, lower the stats to give it a little bit more flexibility, but nonetheless, it just feels so realistic to both Hearthstone and Scholomance Academy. Don't you think you could just see this card in the game right now? Moving on here to Conversion, another Priest dual class card, this time around with Paladin, a dual class combination we know and love. This one's from Regis Has-Been. I see you. It's okay. 6 mana, and set an enemy minion's attack and health to 1, then take control of it. So we've got a combination here of Paladin's subdue style health and attack reductions. Paladin's famous for that. And of course, Priest famous for taking other people's minions, mind controls, and Cabal Shadow Priest, Shadow Madnesses, so on and so forth. When you fuse those two together, you've got a card here that's got a really neat balanced twist because you're getting something potentially really valuable from your opponent, but you're reducing its stats, thereby lowering its value. But of course, if it's some awesome Death Rattle minion or something with a really positive effect like Malagos, you wouldn't necessarily care so much that it's 1/1 if it's helping you really swing the game or just deny something super duper important from your opponent. So I like that this is a cheaper mind control with this baked in downside. It feels really core to both of these classes' identities, and it fuses them together in such a good way that I don't even care that the creator's name is coming at me hard. I gotta put this card in the video anyway. So next up here is Bloom Lord Xavius. We've got Xavius here with a twist combining Demon Hunter and Druid together. That's a pretty cool combination. It's a 6-mana 5/6 demon, and it's from Nurmom. Another crazy name. We had Regis Has Been. Now we've got Nurmom. I don't know what's up with all these names. But it's a choose one. Give your hero +5 attack this turn, or give your hero lifesteal this turn. And I think this is a really neat idea here, combining two different aspects that Druid and Demon Hunter kind of share, which is attacking with your hero, but also life gain. Demon Hunter is through lifesteal, Druid's through more traditional healing, but it feels like those two fuse together really well. Now, I don't know about Xavius and Demon Hunter. There's some weird lore there, but this is apparently some sort of redeemed Xavius that's become like green and he's more flowery instead of evil. So we'll let it play as some sort of alternate reality Xavius. But I think it's really cool because like Demon Hunter might want to use this aggressively. Sometimes in a pinch, you might already have a bunch of attack and you just desperately need the lifesteal. And then you've got Quest Druid implications, where you get both, and it's amazing because you get to clear something or just hit face, and you get to heal along the way while depositing a nice minion. So, I mean, I think both classes have ways to use a card like this one. It feels, maybe a little weaker than something like Soul Shard Lapidary that we've seen since this card was probably designed. But nonetheless, it's just a really cool combination of these two classes, and I think I'd like to see it in the game. All right, next up here is the Plagiarizing Wizard from Rob K, a 5-mana 5/5 for Mage and Rogue. And the battle cry reads, your opponent draws a spell, and then you add a 1-cost copy of it to your hand. So you've got a wizard here who's copying off his opponents, but he's apparently such a gifted wizard, he's making it much, much cheaper. So this card reminds me a little bit of like Keymaster Alabaster. This was probably submitted before Keymaster Alabaster was even revealed, because these cards are from a while ago. That said, I actually think it does it better than Keymaster Alabaster, because instead of being this passive, really high cost effect, Plagiarizing Wizard is immediate and it's forced, so you know you're going to get something out of it. Now, of course, it has a downside in that you're giving your opponent an additional card, which is generally a bad side outside of some kind of crazy mill shenanigan. But hopefully, if you get that spell immediately, you can use the 1-mana spell sooner than your opponent and gain a tempo advantage. So let's say, Pie in the Sky, you get like Dimensional Ripper or Survival of the Fittest for 1 mana, you're over the moon. Now, clearly, you could also get like a Moonfire, and you're no longer over the moon. You're under the Moonfire and pretty sad, but it's still got some cool applications. Now, would this be a super competitive card? I certainly don't think so. Maybe it could pop in to like a Thief Rogue or some kind of mill deck in wild format, because I think it's probably still just a little bit too slow, and giving your opponent stuff is tough, and it's unreliable because you don't know if you're going to get a high cost or low cost spell anyway. So some real issues competitively speaking, but from a fun and flavor standpoint, this card is absolutely wonderful. Next up here is the Battle Hardened Warpriest from Dr. Quilbert J. Fish. What's wrong with you guys? Why are these your names? It's that's actually a good name. That's funny. It's a 6-mana 4/6, and it's for Warrior and Priest. Putting that right in the name Warpriest. I mean, maybe a little obvious, but hey, I'll take it. And it reads, whenever another friendly minion survives damage, give them +2 health. So another card here that really takes core components of both classes and puts them into something really neat combination-wise here. Warrior, you've naturally got whirlwind effects going on constantly. Say you're Risky Skipper, and this is just buffing your board simultaneously. So imagine, for instance, having an Armor Smith on board and just giving it +2 health multiple times so that you could just chain even more whirlwinds or blade storm effects and just gain like a bajillion armor. It does, of course, have a 6-mana attacks for the Warpriest itself, but there's still some crazy plays possible. On the other hand, you've got Priest here, who's able to utilize high health historically in a lot of ways with things like Inner Fire or just healing that health up constantly to make their minions more survivable. So both classes have that benefit, and it fits them both so well. I will say I think there's probably more application for a card like this in Warrior than in Priest, but you can still see it fitting into both. And of course, cards like this just existing, say, in the Galakron pool for Priest, are important, and they have an impact on the game. Because I do think this card's a little slow for most decks to run. It feels more like a follow-up shenanigan meme sort of card than a high-powered one to me. But nonetheless, it could pop in occasionally into that risky skipper world and make a pretty cool impact on the game. So I'd be curious to see how people would use a card like this one. Next up here is the Illidari Spellbreaker from Foster High. It's 3-mana 3/2 for Demon Hunter and Paladin again. And it has the base battle cry that silences a minion. So it's a lot like our old Spellbreaker, but it's an Illidari version, and it can indeed get Divine Shield as a bonus if you outcast it. And this really does fit Spellbreakers and Paladin from a lore standpoint really well. And then combining the outcast version, you could imagine this is a Spellbreaker who's kind of out on his own, doing his thing, maybe aligned with Demon Hunters in particular. And that's how these two worlds combine. So I think that's a really cool little aspect of the story. And the tough thing about the outcast here is, right, sometimes with silences, you want to use them at very specific moments. And it can be hard to set up an outcast card like this for those specific moments, because it's like it's in the middle of your hand. You're not going to want to wait to use it until the time is right. If you've got the perfect silence, you need to get through a taunt, remove some Librams, whatever it is. So often the outcast here is going to fizzle. On the other side of things, sometimes silences take a while to actually come into play because there's just nothing to silence, and it naturally filters itself over to the left side of your hand, and then the outcast is more easy to achieve, but it could potentially block other outcast cards that you need to also filter over there because there's been nothing great to silence. So I think there's some neat implications here for the outcast aspect. Now, clearly, if the outcast goes off, this card is just insane. It hard power creeps Spellbreaker, even though it is a class card. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not making a value judgment here, just identifying how much better it would be. And Spellbreaker, of course, was a great card. I think both Paladin and Demon Hunter would love having a cheap, flexible silence like this. And the fact that it also adds a great body to the board that's resilient and sticky, particularly for buffs in Paladin, would make this an insanely strong card. But I just like that it takes another spin on a different dual class combination and puts Outcast and Paladin. That sounds so cool. Next up here is Illidari Brute from Davon again. This card is just obscenely simple, and that's what I like about it. It just feels so pure. It's straight up a 3-mana 3/3 for Warrior and Demon Hunter, and it's got Rush, and it's got Taunt. Illidaris have Rush, Brutes and Warrior cards have Taunt, and here this card can do a little bit of both. And I love it. It's just so basic and simple, but it really delivers on what a dual class card is. It tells the story of both of these classes really well. And I don't know if this card would even be great, because, you know, if you want a deck with Rush cards, you're probably doing that. If you want a deck with Taunt cards, you're probably doing that. But who knows? It feels like Warrior could make this work really nicely. Maybe Demon Hunter needs something in a pinch. And just having cards like this that exist in random Discover pools for Taunts and Rush feels really good too. So sure enough, I like this card for its simplicity. Like, this is not one anybody's going to lose their mind on and be like, oh, that's so cool. But it's just so pure and so Hearthstone. And again, it just feels so realistic that I had to include it in the video. And then finally here, one last card here. It's Recruiter Kalyn for Rogue and Paladin. 2-mana 2/3 from Faroon, and it has a start of game effect. Convert all neutral cards in your deck into random Paladin cards. So this one's pretty crazy. We got to talk about this. Like, wait a minute. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, why? Why would I want to do that in Paladin in particular? Like, what's the point? Instead of giving myself Paladin cards that I know are good, I'm going to just toss in a bunch of random stuff, and then it's going to turn all those into Paladin cards. Like, that sounds really lame. That's not any good for pure Paladin, which would be the point of this card. And you're right. So I think in Paladin, this is a meme card, but there still are some applications, right? Say you really want to play like 5 Tyrians over the course of the game. Can't run 5 Tyrians in your deck with Recruiter Kalyn? Easy. Just hit those 5 random Tyrians, toss in whatever junk neutrals you want, 29 neutrals, and you're going to get, a few Tyrians throughout the course of the game, probably. So it's basically a card that could allow you to just do some crazy high rolls, just surprise your opponent while still achieving a pure deck. So you could run like the pure package, some really high-powered cards, a bunch of random neutrals in Kalyn, and then just try to spike your deck with crazy powerful stuff. Realistically, you're going to get terrible 1-mana secrets, and you're going to lose a lot, but it would be a super, super fun meme card. Now, on the other side of things here, For Rogue, we do have some actual, perhaps competitive applications for things like a Quest Rogue deck where you run this, you turn a bunch of neutral cards into Paladin cards, and then you're constantly drawing things for your Thief/Burgle style package, whether you just want to make that a really quick quest activation for a Quest Rogue, or you just want to make sure you have fuel for all your Vendettas or whatever else, or you just think you want awesome Paladin cards, this card could do that. So is this a good card? No, almost certainly it would be really, really weak. Is it a fun card that fuses these two classes together in a really interesting way? Absolutely, 100%. I would love to play this card in both classes. I'd have a ton of fun with this one. So ship it. Let's get it in the game right now. I love Recruiter at Kalyn. And that's it, guys. That wraps it up here for this video, but you guys submitted some insanely good designs. I actually have 10 more dual class cards we're going to talk about in our next videos. There's 10 more coming. If you didn't see your design in this video, you might see it in the next one still, because there's a lot of cool dual class cards coming. Ton of new legendaries. A hero card, I think, is on the way. So stay tuned for part 2 of this video with 10 more cards coming at you in the next few days. But until then, of course, feel free to share your thoughts on these cards in the comments below. What'd you like? What'd you hate? What's OP? What's too weak? I want to hear it all. And that said, thanks for watching. And until next time, game on.